Hey, everybody. Happy Wednesday. It might be a Tuesday or a Thursday if you're listening to this later in the future, because that's when we release our episodes. But today is actually a Wednesday. So happy Wednesday to all that are listening right now. My name is Eric Thomas. I am the host of the Smart HVAC Marketing Podcast. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. We've got a very good guest with us today. We're joined by Brian Gesner from Prestige. Brian, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, Brian, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell the world a little bit more about your company, about the history of the company, and how you got to where you are today.
So my name is Brian Gesner. I own Prestige Heating and Air Conditioning. We are based out of the Woodlands, Texas, just north of Houston. And our company is 13 years old. We have 10 technicians on the road. We do our own installs in-house, so I've got a few install crews out there as well. I've been in the industry myself for 34 years, since the age of 10. So I've been in this for a very, very long time. There's not a whole lot that I haven't seen or touched.
Yeah.
So it gives us the knowledge and ability to basically work on everything.
Yeah. So since the age of 10, I assume that you had a family member or maybe a friend's family member that you were working with, or were you just getting out of middle school and going and swapping out AC units?
No, it was my dad. My dad had his own company. He still does, actually. He's just one man in a truck, just like he wants to be. And I was his little attic rat for a very, very long time.
Send you up first and make sure there's no rats up there, snakes.
That's it.
That's awesome. So what are some of the lessons that you learned growing up in the trades?
So one of the I think the most important lesson that I learned that we carry through right now is take care of the client first and foremost. Don't worry about the money. You know, you need to make sure that you're charging the correct prices and that you've got your bottom line prices all figured out, but just treat the client like they're gold and the money will come. You don't have to worry about it. It's going to come. They're going to refer you. All their friends are going to refer you. And it's just going to be super simple if you just focus on treating them well.
Yeah. I think I'm not sure who said this quote, but recently, but it's just been stuck in my head. And that is revenue follows service. And, you know, there's a lot of companies out there that just go straight for revenue, you know, sell without any type of, you know, fulfillment of the promised service. And it's actually quite the opposite. If you go heavy on the service, make sure you do a good job the first time, make the customer happy, then the revenue will follow tenfold.
Yeah. And then we now have clients that we're referred to that tell us, look, we were told by a friend or a family member that you're not the cheapest, but we want to go with you. So, I mean, that means the world to me, knowing that even though they're wanting to bargain shop, I'm sure everybody wants to bargain shop. They're willing to spend a little bit more just to go with us because they know that service is going to be there.
Yeah. I feel like the tides are starting to turn kind of in the home services industry in regards to, you know, commodity shopping, price shopping. I feel like it used to be where it was always, I can find a guy to do it cheaper. But I feel like enough homeowners learned their lesson about that, where now it's gotten to the point where it's like, okay, if he's the cheapest, then they probably aren't good.
Yeah. I think that's exactly what it is, man. You hit the nail on the head. They are learning their lessons, and those lessons are now being passed around, as word of mouth, just like we're advertised for by word of mouth. Those stories are starting to go around. We had a client that we did a quote for about 2 months ago, and he has a 900 square foot home, and he ended up going with the cheaper guy, and the cheaper guy came and put a 5-ton system in a 900 square foot home. And in Houston, that's a horrible idea because you're not removing moisture. And so now he has walls caked in mold and moisture and water running down everything. And now he's paying us to go back in there and redo it all.
So how do you go about explaining that to the customer, that like, how do you gracefully tell them, hey, you made a bad decision, and it's going to cost you more to fix, but we're going to get it right this time?
You know, I normally don't have to do that explaining because they do that for me. They will call up the office and say, look, I need to speak to Brian. I made a very bad decision, and now I need to spend a lot of money to correct it.
Yeah. I mean, that has to have been a pretty hefty correction if they were You say it was
Yeah,
5 ton
yeah.
system.
They spent 7,000 with this other guy, and now we've got a lot of cleanup to do, plus a
Yeah.
whole new system. So we're looking at 9 grand going back in. So he's 16 all in.
Yeah. And so do you all do mold removal, or did you have to call out another company to do that?
So we do mild mold removal, and we can basically be a better of service. So about 15, 16 years ago, there was a big mold boom in Texas, especially the Houston area. So I broke off of my dad's company and I went and studied mold, and worked for a mold microbiologist for 2 years, and just really dug into it. And so I can now bring that knowledge forward, and we can find out why you have mold, why it's being created in your system, what we need to do to get rid of it, and then lastly, what we need to do to make sure it never comes back.
Yeah. So what causes the mold in Texas?
Moisture. We live in a bowl. If you look at sea level, we're below sea level. So, moisture just sits around here a lot. We have really, really high humidity rates. During the summer, it'll be 100 degrees and it'll be 100% humidity. And
Wow.
so with those conditions, you have to design your air conditioning system to remove moisture primarily and cool secondarily. And when you don't do that, and when you oversize, you just create more moisture.
Yeah. That seems to be a problem that I've continued to hear is more of a trend in the industry, is people oversizing or selling oversized systems to homeowners. Why do you think that people are doing that?
So I think there's a few different reasons. A lot of guys out there, man, and unfortunately, they just, they worked for an AC company for like 6 months and then they went and started their own, and they don't have the knowledge. They have very little education in our field, and so they just throw something in that sounds right. There's a lot more out there that go by just rules of thumb, that we used to go off of back in the 80s and 90s, like 400 square feet per ton, 500 square feet per ton. This is a science. It's an exact science. And there's a lot of things that need to be factored in there. That's why a load calculation, a manual J, is normally pretty darn important. If you're going into a house and just changing out equipment like for like, then it is what it is. But if there's an issue there, then you really need to dig in deeper and figure out why there's an issue and how you can solve it.
Yeah. And especially in different geographical areas too, like where it's 100% humidity, versus if you go to, I don't know, somewhere like Nebraska where
Yeah.
no humidity is just dry.
Yeah.
It's
So
not apples to apples.
it's not. A buddy of mine has a house over in Sedona. We were just over there in Arizona, and he has a swamp cooler. He actually adds humidity to his space
Wow.
instead of removing it, because it's so dry there. But you would never, ever find a swamp cooler down here in Houston.
Yeah. So we're located here in Virginia Beach, and I thought it was pretty humid here, and our humidity rates on a day like today is around like 55, 60%, because we're right up by the water. Um, so I couldn't imagine 100% humidity, because it's like the second I step outside, my glasses fog up, my
Yeah.
windshield's all fogged up. So how often do you get calls from customers to fix the problem that you had just had to fix recently with the mold?
A lot. We probably get 3 to 4 a week, which is a lot. It's a lot more than it used to be. You used to get maybe 1 a week or 2 a month or something like that. But they're becoming more and more seen. And a lot of the reasons why is this year, especially here in Houston, it has just rained and rained and rained. I think we rained 28 days in July, 28 days. It's unreal. So the amount of moisture that's outside, and then every time we open our doors, we're bringing that in. If we don't have a positively pressured system, if your windows are leaking a little bit, your doors are leaking a little bit, all that moisture is seeping in, and then the AC system is having to fight that.
Yeah. I guess what they say is true. Everything is bigger in Texas, including the humidity.
You're exactly right.
So are there other states around you that face similar challenges like Louisiana or Oklahoma?
Definitely Louisiana. I actually spent some time up in Oklahoma for a little while. My mom moved up there, so I know that climate pretty well. It's pretty dry, pretty windy, but Louisiana basically mimics our climate, especially because they're right there on the Gulf. And a lot of the cities that are along the Gulf like that actually do have high humidity rates like we do.
Yeah. So when it comes to like marketing and advertising, how do you guys communicate uh, your services to customers in regards to like the humidity and the mold removal and all that stuff?
So it's a difficult one to talk about because it doesn't affect everyone. So you don't want to spend a lot of time and energy on it. So what we have found is we just target it through social media, and we do it in a way of, after we help a client fix a problem like this, we like to get, something recorded by them speaking about their issues, how we solve them, and then just spread that out on social media, and hopefully it reaches people that are having the same issues.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of companies around us that they have no idea how to address this moisture and mold issue in all of these systems. And quite frankly, they make things worse. And when
Yeah.
we come in there, we find situations that could have been solved a lot easier if they wouldn't have come in there and done something extremely incorrect. Like the other day, we went to one, and a guy had told him 2 months ago, put the fan in the on position, just leave it in the on position. And it's going to remove your humidity. It actually creates humidity by leaving your fan in the on position, because when the
Yeah.
coil is now wet and the condenser is shut off, that's not cold anymore. It's just moist, hot water. And now you're blowing that into the plenum. You're creating more moisture in the house. So this guy now, we're ripping out all of his ceilings and his bottom floor. We're removing wet ductwork everywhere. His ceilings are dripping. You can see exactly where the ductwork is because his ceiling just drips everywhere there's ductwork. It's insane.
Yeah. That's so funny that you mentioned that, because I remember as a kid, I feel like it was at my grandma's house. She in here in Virginia, I'd always noticed sometimes there being moisture buildup on like the ceiling fan, like around the light,
Mm-hmm.
and I was always like, how does that even get there? Um, and then I guess that kind of makes sense as to why it was happening. There's
Yeah.
probably because it was a very humid area and just left the fan on all day.
Yeah, well, the ceiling fan is fine, but I'm talking about the fan in the air conditioner. Don't turn that on
Okay.
and leave it on, because it's going to blow through that evaporator coil after the outdoor unit turns off. The evaporator
Yeah.
coil is still wet, but now it's not cold anymore. Now it's just wet. And so
Yeah.
you're introducing all of that air, into that wet air, into the airstream.
Yeah. So, do you do this type of education with your customers and with the community down in Houston? Because I mean,
Yes.
this is stuff that, like, a lot of, I would be willing to bet probably 75% of homeowners don't understand or they don't know.
They don't know. So I do a lot of these little podcasts like this. I do a lot of networking in our area and in Houston. And so I get to be in front of a lot of people at forums. And so I try to share this knowledge as much as I possibly can. It never fails. Every time we do one of these forums and we start sharing this type of information, we just get flooded with calls, people wondering if their home is suffering from this. And that's not the point of it at all. I'm really actually trying to educate people how to operate their systems properly so that they can avoid this.
Yeah. So what are some of those tips that you give people to I guess to have their system properly operating to avoid this type of problem?
Well, number one, even if you're not going to use us, use somebody for maintenance. Get your system checked out at least twice a year, once in the summer, once in the fall. Make sure that everything's nice and clean, especially coils, indoor and outdoor coils. But more importantly, the things that you can do is change your filter. Change your filter once a month. If it can go a little bit longer, that's perfectly fine. But I mean, they aren't that expensive. Just change your filter.
Yeah.
Don't turn your fan in the on position. Don't
Yeah.
turn your AC off when you go to work and then expect it to cool down very quickly and remove all that moisture that's built up in your house along the day, within the next hour when you get home. Just let it do its thing. Put it in auto, put it in cool, set it to a temperature, let that temperature go up to 78 while you're gone. That's perfectly fine. But don't really let it get over 80 if you can help it, because that's when moisture is going to start creeping in.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on like smart thermostats like the Nest?
I hope Nest isn't watching, but I don't like the Nest.
Yeah. I mean, if Google's listening to this podcast, I would be really surprised.
So man, we replaced so many of those Nest thermostats. I mean, I really appreciate Nest because they give us a lot of money.
Yeah.
We replaced a lot of the Nest thermostats. In fact, we just went to a house yesterday that has moisture issues, and we found that the Nest thermostat keeps turning the fan in the on position. They keep turning it off, and it keeps turning it back on. And so they'll go to work, and when they come back, the house is all muggy and humid. They came home the other day and they had 87% humidity in the house because of the stupid thermostat.
Mm-hmm.
So we changed it out. And what I really like is the EcoBees. Ecobee has a really cool platform. It works with Alexa as well. It does all sorts of really cool things. It has some eco functions as well that can save you a little bit of money. And it basically works with every system out there. And it's just super simple to use on your app.
Yeah. Yeah. We bought a Nest probably a year ago, and it has been nothing but problems. I mean, it, like you said, like it's smart. So they say it learns your patterns and whatnot. So it's just like you come home and it's just like randomly off. You leave
Yeah.
for 15 minutes, you come back, it's on. You're like, what? It's just crazy. And then I tried setting a schedule, and like it didn't adhere to the schedule at all.
No, because you're not the boss. It is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I guess it's the boss of the home now. So yeah, now we're actually about to replace it because it was like it's just causing too many problems. And we just got a new system, which was really nice. And it was just like it was causing a lot of problems in our home.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way the system's causing this. But it's got to be something like the thermostat or something.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're going to replace it, man, I would definitely suggest going with the Ecobee. It's a great thermostat. I've got them in my house as well.
I feel like we should get Ecobee to sponsor the podcast.
There you go.
That'd be awesome. So Brian, let's talk a little bit more, shifting back kind of here into like the business side. When it comes to like growth of your business. So you've been in business for 13 years. You said you've got over 15 employees now.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you take the business from zero to where it's at today?
Man, that was a chore. I ended up leaving my father and going to work for a couple of other companies, and spent several years working for these different companies. And I created what I called the Bible. I made lists of everything that they did that worked out well, and I made lists of everything that they did that did not work out well. And so I knew I was going to start my own at some point, and I knew I wasn't going to be going to schooling for it, not for business at least. Mm-hmm. So I needed to know the ins and outs, and that's what helped me. So several years into working for the last guy I worked for, he was actually grooming me to take over his company. And one day he just brought me in and said, look, you don't know it, but I've got a son that's your age. We haven't been in contact for a very long time. And we are in contact now, and he wants to take over the business. So what am I supposed to do? So he kind of left me out to dry. So what I would start doing is I would go to work from 6 a.m. to about 4 p.m. for him. And then I would come home, change clothes, and I'd get in my own personal truck with my own personal tools. And I would just go out and start working on different clients' homes, friends and family members. I never, ever took one client of his because I didn't want that to ever happen to me. And I'm a very firm believer in karma. So I wanted to do this the right way and my way. So I would work until about 10 p.m. on service calls. And then I would work from that time till about 2 a.m. on new home projects that I had landed and change outs and vacant homes. And I would do it all by myself. And then I come home around 2:30 and go to sleep for a little bit and start it all over, man. And I did that for a year and a half. Wow. And one day he called me up. He called me up after I'd got home and was changing clothes to go to Prestige. And he said, hey, Brian, I found out about Prestige. I appreciate all your years of service, and you're fired. Click. So that was the day I went on my own. And my wife got home about 30 minutes later, and I didn't want to worry her. So I did tell a little white lie. I told her that I had made a great decision that day, and we were going to start Prestige, and we were leaving the other company behind.
That's right.
And she got excited. Of course, I was nervous as hell. But, I started the company basically with $800 in my pocket, my own tool bag, and a blue, a 2004 Dodge truck. And nice. Away we went.
And that's an incredible story. I mean, I love hearing stories like that where, you get pushed off into the deep end almost, because there's so many people out there that, let's be honest, there's a lot of technicians out there who go and work side jobs because, it's not bad money. But yeah, they go work side jobs and, they want to start their own business. They want to go off on their own because they've always had the itch for entrepreneurship. They've always had the itch to make more money and,
right.
get out of the attic and into more of a, I guess, an office setting, and just try to, I guess, grow into the trade more. But they never do it because they don't ever have the push from someone to do it.
That's it.
And so in this instance, it was the push that you needed, but you probably didn't know it at the time.
I didn't. And man, I had, for about 6 months before that, I had pondered just going out and just doing it. But every time I did, I would look at that regular paycheck that I was getting from him and be like, man, what if I don't make it, and I've got something secure right now. And so that push did a lot of good for me. And that really started my path on ultimate confidence. Once I did that and it worked and I started growing this, I was like, man, I can do anything I want. I will make it happen. I promise you.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a very good feeling to be able to do something on your own and be able to say, like, I did this.
Yep.
Which is awesome. So after you kind of got the start, full time with your blue truck and your tools, how did you go about, I guess, the next 3 years? What did that look like?
Next 3 years were almost catastrophic, to be honest with you. We grew at an enormous rate. Once I started going out there and doing what I was talking about earlier and treating clients like I was treating them, we just blew up, man. And so I hired a guy who ended up screwing me over. Basically, he kept saying he was my first employee, and I was getting calls from clients saying, hey, we still have an issue over here. And so I would call him up, hey man, what's going on? Are you on this job site? Oh yeah, it's just taking a little bit longer. And then I found out he was at home. So he was making it even worse for me. So I got rid of him, and I immediately just hired 3 other people. And we just started tackling it. But we grew too fast. And when I say that, I mean, we weren't able to give that customer experience that I started the business with, and clients started to actually call me out on it. And they were calling me, and the office line was my cell phone. So, I'd be up in an attic and I get a phone call, I'm answering phone calls, and they'd be like, Brian, you used to be so much better than this, but now the customer service aspect is gone. And so I decided I was going to scale down a little bit and hire a couple more people. So we scaled up to 5 people, and then we scaled our clientele down, and we started spreading our calls out. We weren't trying to get everything done in one day. That used to be a problem of mine. I'm a people pleaser, so I wanted to get to everybody that one day, and when we started to spread them out a little bit more, we got a few more people, we took a few less calls per day. We gave that customer experience back. And then I got great phone calls of people saying, thank you for whatever you did.
Yeah. So let's just keep diving into the timeline here, because I'm really enjoying listening to this. So after, I guess, the first 3 years, and you're at 13 years now. So let's just say the next 5 years. You'd scaled down the clientele and the company, or scaled up the company, scaled down clientele. What was the next 3 to 5 years look like from there?
So then I'm very well versed in light commercial and heavy commercial as well, but light commercial, you'll find more technicians that can do that. So I decided that we were going to then start splitting up and do 50-50 residential and commercial. So I hired a few more technicians for light commercial. We took on some maintenance clients for commercial side as well. We took on some pretty large projects. We ended up remodeling the largest apartment complex in the city of Houston. It was all chill water, and we replaced all the chill water in the entire place, including all the air handlers. The apartment complex had 793 units,
wow,
which is a lot. It's almost unheard of. Most complexes have 300 to 400.
Yeah.
And at that time, we really scaled up. And at that time, I had, and they all knew that they were only going to be there for about a year until this project was done. But at that time, we had about 48 employees. During that project, I found one of my favorite employees I have right now. He's a technician that's now been with me for 10 years. He epitomizes everything that I want the customer to see in our company. And he spreads that throughout the company with all of our other technicians like wildfire, like a disease, but a good disease. And so we just continued to grow and take on more commercial, take on more residential. But then I came up across another problem. We eventually got to about 75% commercial and only 25% residential. Well, especially for a younger company, what that really does is it hurts your cash flow. So now I'm waiting for payments for 60, 90, 120 days.
Yeah.
Whereas when I was all residential, I'm getting paid today.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I'm done, we're writing a ticket, we're getting a check, we're depositing it, and we got money in the bank. Now I'm getting strung out, and we've got $100, $150, $200,000 strung out on different projects. We're waiting on payments. So it started to create some financial burdens in the company. And so we had to rescale things and kind of go back to the drawing board all over again. I've basically sent myself through business school the hard knocks way, and that's of making mistakes and learning them. And now I mentor quite a few business owners, and the one thing that I tell them all the time is please make mistakes. Just make them, get them out of the way, learn from them, and get that spanking that you really needed to make sure that you never do that ever again.
Yeah. That's a really cool story. And so now you're here today on the world's greatest HVAC marketing podcast, telling your story. What's the company look like today? I know you'd said earlier you have 15 to 20 employees. What's the split now with residential, commercial, anything like that?
So we work extremely hard to keep it 50-50. We keep it 50-50 as much as we possibly can. Sometimes the commercial will range up closer to 60%, but we get more residential clientele and we even that back out. But I watch that all year long. It's one of my big concerns because it hurt me. I had a general manager back in the day that hurt me as well. I found out he was taking my clients on the side. So now I have different processes for that. I no longer have a general manager. I have service managers, installation managers. I'm the general manager. Yeah. I no longer, at one point in time, about 8 years ago, I was working with a business coach, and he told me to start stepping away from the business and doing some other things. And when I did, it started suffering. So I'm not going to step away again. It needs me, and it needs me here. And so as long as I own this company, I will be here at the helm.
That's awesome. This is a really cool story. So when it comes to today, differentiating residential, commercial, what are some of the winning marketing strategies that you use for both?
Really, man, it's a lot of networking. I network like crazy. I'm the president of a networking group up here in the Woodlands, and I've done pretty well at it. And because of that, because of the way that I've led that group, I've got a lot of notoriety, and a lot of people know of me and know what I do. So because of that, they just automatically reach out to me because I'm guessing that they feel like that they can trust me because they know who I am. They've seen me in different settings. They feel like that they can trust that I'm going to take care of them. So really and truly networking is the top. Social media comes in a really, really close second because now there'll be a post for someone in a neighborhood looking for an AC guy to come replace their system. And literally there will be 35 to 40 comments on there recommending people, and we will be 30 to 35 of them. It's amazing. And so of course they're going to call us because everyone is recommending us.
Yeah. That is I think that's like the biggest secret untapped potential in social media is the recommendations thing where people, especially in like private groups, like I'm sure there's a Woodlands buy, sell, and trade or Woodlands locals only or something like that. And that's where people go in there looking for a plumber, looking for an HVAC guy, looking for something. And then you're just of people recommending businesses. And if you can get your customers to go on there and recommend you, you're going to get that job 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. And almost every single neighborhood now has a next door. So get on next door, man, blow that thing up. Every single neighborhood now has a private Facebook group. See if you can find someone in that Facebook group to start shouting your name. And
Yeah.
once you get a few of them in there, then there'll be 4 to 5 shouting your name. Then there'll be 15 or 20. And before you know it, you've got the neighborhood sewn up.
Yep.
Get in all these private groups as much as you possibly can, and make sure that you're active. I hated social media, and I hated Facebook, and I fought it tooth and nail. But now I'm perfectly fine with it. And I check it all day, every day. I answer people's questions. I'm on instant messenger answering their questions as well. They reach out to me personally. So just staying connected is really, really working for us.
Yeah. And if you're out there listening right now and you can't find Facebook groups, make your own. You can make, and this is a really cool secret about Facebook groups. If you own the group or you're an admin, you can set up alerts for particular keywords that are used within the group. So
Mhm.
if you there's someone, I found this out through someone I met who owns a group here. It's a Virginia Beach, I think it's For Locals by Locals, and he's a real estate agent, and he has alerts set up so that anytime someone mentions his realtor, real estate, selling house, buying house, renting house, whatever, he gets a notification before anybody else sees the post, and then he can go for them first. And so if you're looking
That's
for a good
amazing.
idea, yeah, you could start your own group and set up those notifications to get alerts when people are looking for plumbers and HVAC guys, electricians, whatever
Yeah,
you want to
just
do.
I would just a word to the wise. I would be a little careful how you handle that though. So there's an AC company here in my area that started a local group to help the city, like
Mhm.
Ask the Woodlands is what it was called, I believe, and people started asking for contractors, and eventually started asking for AC contractors, and people would recommend other companies besides them because they didn't really know them. They just knew that they started this group.
Yeah.
Um, and they started booting people off. So I got booted off for absolutely no reason, just because I own an air conditioning company. Then
Wow.
they started booting off people that were recommending me. And so then what that did was that just drove people to me. It
Yeah.
was it was hilarious. And people started calling me left and right, and they're like, "We want to use you because I got booted off of a group for recommending you. I'll be using you for the rest of my life now." And so all they did was anger these people and turn them to me.
Wow. That's crazy. I never thought about that. So I guess if you start your own group, don't boot people off, because then you'll just
Be
hurt
all
your own
inclusive,
chances.
man. That's what
Yeah.
people want. That it's a community, so treat it like a community.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Brian, this has been an awesome conversation. Real quick before we wrap up, there was someone out there listening right now who's starting their own business, or maybe they just got fired for moonlighting and they are forced to start their own business. What is a tip that you would give them?
Sit down, make a game plan, make a business plan if you can, and first and foremost, create an exit strategy. You're not going to have this forever. You're going to want out at some point in time, or you're going to die and get out. So you need to create an exit strategy when you're creating this business, and it will give you a goal to reach. That was something that I missed on the very first of mine, but I found it, within the first 3 years, and now I have a goal that I'm going for. So create a goal, just keep going for it, and know that there's so much work out there for us guys, and we're never ever going away, that you will succeed. You just have to work hard.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Brian, I appreciate your time joining me here on the Smart HVAC Marketing Podcast. Before we go, what's a good way for our listeners out there to get in touch with you if they want to just connect with you, or talk to you and learn more about your company?
Our office number, I'm almost always there, 281-288-6211. Our website, prestige-ac.com. Or you can find me anywhere on social media, Brian Gesner.
Cool. All right. Well, we will include a link to your website in the show notes, and that way people can go check it out and get in touch with you. Brian, I appreciate you joining me today.
I appreciate you having me. This
Yeah,
was fun.
absolutely. Yeah, I had a blast. So thank you so much for joining me again. Thank you for everyone that was out there listening. I hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon and an awesome weekend, or rest of your week, depending on what day you're listening to this to.